According to a study published by Gallup and the Walton Family Foundation, 76% of Gen Z members agree that they have a great future ahead of them, yet only 44% report feeling prepared for their future. What role do universities play in supporting and preparing the young generation for a bright and thriving future? I'm going to explore this question today with guest Joseph Miranda, who is the Assistant Dean at George Washington University and Interim Executive Director at the university's Career Center. This is E3, Engage and Empower with Empathy. Well, good morning, Joseph. It's so nice to have you on the show today. I've been genuinely looking forward to this dialogue. I know you and I have had a lot of conversations offline, and we met at an event in DC where you live a few months ago, and I'm very grateful for that. I was just immediately drawn to your persona. You were just sitting, I remember you were sitting just a couple chairs down from me at the event. There was one person in between us, and afterwards, when you stood up, you just had this aura about you. And I'm so glad you approached me, because if you hadn't, I would have approached you anyway. I don't know how to describe it, but you just have this warmth and kindness about you, even before you start talking. And it's truly magnetic. I would love to know how do you use this incredible warmth and kindness at home and at work?
Well, thank you. Appreciate those kind words. And I've been looking forward to being on your podcast as well. So thank you for inviting me. Well, I'm always a very optimistic person. My family and my faith are really my priority, and they ground me in great joy, peace, and strength. And I think that just naturally how I operate. When you have that type of, I think, grounding, it makes you look at everything else in the proper perspective. So what I've always tried to bring to the work environment is one that brings that joy, the happiness, respect for each individual, encouragement, service orientation, but also excellence. Right? I mean, we have to get a job done. We need to do what we're doing well. I expect excellence. Make sure the right people are in the roles. They have the right tools they need. They have the right resources. And then I view my job after that is to be chief obstacle remover, right? Make sure there's nothing in their way that keeps them from achieving the mission that they have. And one of the big things that I've learned over the years, and this is something I've had with me since a young person, is I would always say thank you. I remember in my first internship in college, I worked for the Pillsbury Company in their distribution center in Chattanooga. And I would just say thank you. Anything, or sent me something. And when I left, after my time was done, they gave me this big letter, a very nice letter, and they all put thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you down it. Because and I don't say that loosely. I mean, I really mean thank you, right? It's a genuine thank you when I use that term. And so my point is recognition is extremely important. I notice, people do their work, do their jobs, they do it well. There can be a sense of, oh, that's the job, and a leader can possibly ignore that. I think you need to do shout outs. You need to tell people they're doing well and tell them thank you. I think that's extremely important when you're leading, and you need to lead by example. Right? You need to set the pace, set the culture, and hopefully the team will follow suit.
Absolutely. And that's such an interesting point too, because as I'm studying this topic of empathy, and the more people I interview, it doesn't matter who the person is, whether they're in academia, they're a corporate executive, they're a leadership consultant. What I'm finding is that gratitude is an incredible part of the way we lead. It's incredibly impactful and oftentimes overlooked because it seems so basic and so simple. I think you mentioned it earlier that he or she is she's doing the job, she's getting it done. I don't need to thank them. They're just doing their job, right? That's in their job description. That's what they've been asked to do. But really, that genuine thank you goes a long way in really engaging and keeping an employee motivated. So just curious, because you've had a really interesting career journey. I love that you mentioned your time at Pillsbury. I did not know that about you. That's a nice little nugget that I got this morning. I know you spent a lot of time at Accenture before you ended up in academia. Have you seen any parallels between your experience in the consulting world versus academia? What kind of leadership lessons have you learned in both of those worlds?
I, I've learned a lot of leadership lessons, and I've learned it from having fantastic bosses, and I've learned it from having not so much fantastic bosses. And I've always tried to take what I've learned from those that are really good and make that my own, right? And try to make sure I continue doing those things that I see are valuable, right, as a leader. And those things I see from leaders that weren't so good, you make sure that you leave that aside, because you know what will work and what won't work. But you are your own person, right? I mean, you're not trying to be someone else. You're just trying to recognize those skill sets, those behaviors that make good leaders, and make that your own. Corporate America is a different model, right? It's a for-profit organization versus a nonprofit organization, where profit is important, but helping your clients is also important. Good job for your clients, and which then also benefits the company. Coming to a university in higher ed, it's all about our students, right? And the difference there is you can do a good job for a client and maybe build a wonderful system for them, and they're happy and their customers benefit from that. And that's great. But when you're helping a student and a student sends you a note back saying, "Thank you for all your help. I just got this offer from this company for a job," and you know that impacts their life, their family's life too, right? They're happy that the child, right, has got a job. The child is happy that they've got a job, and they're building a career, they're building a life. And that's a different sense of accomplishment, right? But it's nothing I've done. It's really just helping the students unlock the potential and the strength that they have and the motivation they have to recognize how good.
Yeah, I love those parallels. And I'd love to talk a little bit more specifically about the generation of future leaders that you have the privilege to work with every day. And we were talking a little bit about Gallup. We met at an event at Gallup, and they actually published a report in collaboration with the Walton Family Foundation recently, and it's titled Voices of Gen Z: Perspectives on US Education, Well-Being, and the Future. And the report indicates that optimism about the future is relatively high within the Gen Z population, which is good. However, only 44% of Gen Z Americans report feeling prepared to successfully enter the workforce when they graduate. In your opinion, what role should universities play in helping this generation feel more prepared for the future?
That was actually a great study and survey. In answering that question, I think there's some really good insights that come out of that particular survey. Some of those important insights were around adults or mentors that a Gen Z might have in their life that encourage them to pursue their goals and their path. And those that do have an adult or mentor are twice as likely to feel like they can achieve their goals and the jobs that they want and the career that they want. That's important. So that's a great insight. I think less than half of those surveyed, the Gen Z, believe that their schools do not provide enough opportunities to prepare them for the workforce.
Yeah.
And then there was the third insight, and now this will all come back to how I think prepare them for the future, was around what Gen Z viewed as barriers to their goals and aspirations. Right? And really all the barriers, the top 8, 2 were around financial issues. And then the other 6 were around careers, networking, motivation, and mentoring. So that leads right into answering your question. What we do here at George Washington University School is the absolute right model to address these concerns. I wear a few different hats at the university. So one is assistant dean of operations, and then right now I'm interim executive director of our career center, the Dollar Career Center. And in the career center, we have a program called Careers 360. This program is an experiential learning. It's co-curricular. And there are 3 industry verticals that are going to continue to have industry verticals. What exists today is finance. So students that really want a career in finance, but mainly Wall Street finance, could join that particular program. We've just launched one in marketing. So students that want careers in marketing can join that particular program. And then we have consulting, which is our oldest, which before I became assistant dean, I had run that program. Students that wish to get into consulting can join that particular program. Now, the benefit of that, and I'll go into explaining it more, and I'll try not to take a half hour just explaining the program because there's a lot to talk about. We not only build knowledge of the industry, kind of players in the industry, how big is the industry, what kind of skills are needed for the industry, how you prepare for interviewing and applying for jobs in the industry. But we also tell them, how do you think in a structured manner to solve a problem? We teach them what is executive presence and how to do it. How do you effectively communicate to individuals virtually or in person? How do you make those effective presentations, not just from a informative standpoint, but if I'm talking to a client CEO, the way I'm going to deliver a message is quite different than if I'm talking to my colleague about the project. Right? There's a different level of detail and key indicators you're going to be communicating in a different way. We also teach them about professional etiquette or professional behavior. You're going to be in lots of different situations, and they need to be prepared at least as to what to expect in these situations. We also try to instill in them the idea of entrepreneurial mindset and innovation. A lot of students, they're very ambitious. I can remember when I got out of college, right? You think you can go and run the company that you're going to join, and you can't at that particular time. But you can make a difference in what you're doing, job and tasks that are in front of you. You can be innovative there. You can look for ways to make a difference and make that particular job better, more efficient, and it will be recognized. And someday you might be making the decisions for the company, but you have to take it slowly. I always tell them, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Because if you're uncomfortable, you're growing. And if you're comfortable, you probably are stagnating, right? You need to always be doing something that pushes you, stretches you, where you're learning more and getting more knowledge and skill sets. And then we also tell them, build a skyscraper. Right? When skyscrapers are built, they don't just level the ground flat and then start building on top. They dig very deep, build a great foundation, and then you can build a 100-story skyscraper. And your career is the same way. And they can reach success, and whatever success is to them in their role. And why I built all of this onto the programs, because during my time at Accenture, I hired and saw a lot of university students, whether undergrad or grad. And that's a big transition from university to corporate life. And some young professionals stumble right out of the gate. And I would course correct them, and they would do great, and I forget about it. Some people may not forget about it, and it could hinder their career. I don't want that to happen to our students. So I want to make sure they have all the tools and awareness, and we can't make them experts in all of those areas. So we can make them aware enough and have enough tools to where they can have a good first year under their belt. And if they have a good first successful year, their confidence will grow, and I think they can achieve whatever goals and aspirations they do. So I think those kinds of programs really address what we see in that survey from Gen Zers. And we have a lot of great coaches with years of experience that meet with our students. They motivate our students. They mentor our students. They give them the support structure they need to be able to go out and try to land that job and be successful at that job, whether it's an internship before they graduate or full-time employment.
That's so comprehensive what you offer at the university level. I mean, I think about my own personal experience in academia, which was very theoretical. And when I went into the workforce, so this was back in 2007, I fortunately went into a startup company that was really laid back. I mean, I remember when I went in for my interview, the CEO was wearing shorts and flip flops, and the air conditioners were broken and fans were running. This was in the south of France. So there was also that context as well. So it was a very chill, very laid back environment. And it almost felt somewhat still like university and halfway corporate, but not really super hardcore corporate. That was great with easing into the corporate world. But once I actually got into a really large multinational corporation mid career, I found myself trying to play catch up on some of the things that you mentioned, like executive presence. You were talking about communication style and how level of detail and how you need to communicate to someone really senior versus a peer is different. Well, I had to learn that in my 30s versus in my early 20s. So I think it's wonderful that you're already building that skill set for young people before they even enter the workforce. So I'm going to go back to the event that we attended because I think it's really relevant for this particular generation. So the event was called Business and Society: How Corporate America Can Act as a Force for Good. And I know just in my observation of this younger generation that they expect businesses to be a force for good. So it's not even should they, shouldn't they? It's not even a question. It's just yes. And I think that was also the outcome of the event we attended too. The general consensus was this is a responsibility for companies, not just to be profit generating engines, but also be positively impacting society. And I know just talking to younger people as well, when they look for a future employer, they will vet those employers based on their societal impact. What are your tips for companies who want to attract and retain young talent with this mindset?
Yeah. Well, you're right. I think it's very important for the generation today, the Gen Zers, that they feel proud about their company. Their company is doing what's right. They're being good stewards of the environment, and they're being good community members in their local communities. And this generation loves to help out and give back and support those types of initiatives. So I believe most companies recognize that and have built that into their now, not all, but I think most companies do. So students, while they're looking, probably can find companies they're interested in that are already doing it. Where I think companies need to be more prepared. And I actually had a conversation with a leader from a company yesterday and shared this survey with them. And what we talked about is the best way now that companies need to focus on those things we just talked about. What are the stressors that a young professional believes are barriers to them accomplishing what they want to accomplish, their goals, their aspirations? And companies need to do more because they're already, I think, focused on the things that Gen Zers are looking for from the standpoint of being a good member of society and a force for good in business. But they need to make sure they have the right level of mentorship, guiding them through their careers. Like you said, not letting them wait until they're in their 30s to develop important skill sets for them to thrive in a career that they chose. Are they clear on the career progression and what it takes? Do they share with them opportunities that are available within the company? Because you may want to take a pivot in your career path within your company and go to a different industry to support, for example, if you're in consulting. Those are the things I think companies need to think about more with this generation. I think what companies may be grappling too is that this generation does a lot more movement in jobs. They'll might go for a year or two in one, move to another company, move to another company. Organizations are grappling with the investment they make. When I joined, they'd make a significant investment for you, and they know you'd be there at least 5 years. That's not necessarily the case today. There's a lot of movement, and I hope companies are still realizing that there is an investment. I think an investment can prevent the movement from happening as soon as it could happen. And they could still be very valuable to your company. And even if they move, there could be a boomerang effect and they come back to your company even more skilled than they were before. Or at a minimum, you have someone who's left that's still an advocate for the company they were with. So I believe that companies should look at the insights from this survey and see how that relates to what they're doing in building up and developing young professionals.
And that's an interesting point because, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but my immediate reaction to that is, okay, well, if companies are worried about just the churn and the turnover with the younger generation, it's kind of the chicken and the egg concept, in my opinion. It's if companies were investing more in growth and development, would those younger people stay and not feel like they have to? Because I don't know, is it something that from what you're observing and talking to younger people, is that something they really want to do? They like hop skipping and jumping from company to company, because honestly, that's a little exhausting, in my opinion. Or do they just feel, well, this company, this is a transactional relationship I'm having with this company. I'm going there for the paycheck. Clearly, they don't care about me much more beyond that. So I'm just going to get some experience for a couple of years and then move on to the next transactional relationship, because that's how corporate America runs. I guess what's causing what?
Right. Well, again, let's look back at that survey, which is, again, extremely insightful. Financial concerns are significant.
Mm-hmm.
I just see today that, when I graduated college, 40 something years ago, I could get a job and get an apartment by myself for
Yeah.
the salary I was making. That's not the norm today. So I believe some of the sense of hopping to different jobs is partly to meet those financial needs. You need health insurance, you need to buy food, you need a car, you need an apartment, you need some entertainment, whatever it is, right? You need those things. And if the salary is not enough to give you that, you're going to look to where you can continually increase your income, which can lead you to, moving more often than you used to in the past. That's something companies need to look at. Are the salaries set properly for this generation to consider staying longer because their basic needs are met, and now they're focusing on developing their skills, right? Because it's back to your basic, Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Yeah.
What's most important to you. So those are things where whatever companies can do to right size their salary structure, that can go a long way. The other thing is the development. I mean, young people do want to feel like they're valued, right? The recognition, they want to feel like they're invested in, right? Let's go back to the Consulting 360 program. When I took it over, when I first came here we had probably about 100 students. And I built out the program to include all those other things. And we do have mentorship in the program that I didn't mention, and pro bono opportunities, projects for them to actually apply their skills.
Mm.
But after I built out all those extra workshops into the program, I think students saw the value, because the next year the registration for it and the applications increased by 100. So I had about 7% of the business school in Consulting 360. We have about 12% in the Careers 360 program in total business school. So there is a reaction to seeing value, feeling that you're learning something that's going to help you, and that you have individuals that care about you and want you to succeed. That resonates with everyone. It would resonate with me at my age and with anyone today. So those are important factors, I think.
Yeah. It just simply comes down to feeling like someone cares about you as a person, your development, your success. And I know this generation is also a high anxiety generation. You and I talked about this a lot offline. I think we could do a lot to reduce that anxiety by showing we care, showing up for them as the older generation with more experience, more life experience, more work experience, and telling them, hey, it's going to be okay. We've got your back and we're here to help you. I'd love to leave the discussion with that is the major takeaway here. Let's take care of each other. Let's support each other. These young people are our future leaders. It's our responsibility as the older generations to help them succeed so that we can ultimately have great leaders leading our government, leading our companies in the future. And I think, in the end, that'll benefit all of us collectively. So
Well said.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for coming on to the show today. This was such an enlightening conversation. It's always so lovely to talk to you, and I appreciate you sharing your insights with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
This podcast is designed to help busy business leaders create an inspired and engaged workforce. I am building a community of like-minded leaders and experts who all share the same passion, taking care of people at work. Whether you are a small business owner or work in a large corporation, you belong in this community. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. If you know someone who I should interview or should be part of this community, please connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Life is too short. Let's take care of each other at work so that together we can make this world a better place.